Unleash all your pent-up rage in the streets with Streets of Rage 2. This is a classic beat-em up from the Sega Mega Drive generation that has since been ported to every console imaginable. You can find it on Steam, PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox, Nintendo 3DS, and as you can see here, also on Nintendo Switch Genesis Online app. The emulation of Genesis Online in general is pretty good. The emulator used was built with input from M2, the independent Japanese team that are the masters of official console emulators. If their name is involved with any kind of re-release, it's practically a seal of quality for emulation accuracy. So I always tell people who own a Switch to go with the Genesis Online or Sega Ages releases if they care at all about that authenticity. Not the cheap Genesis collections that Sega puts out every few years. Those collections are cheap for a reason. Alright, that's enough unpaid corporate shilling. Anytime a new beat-em-up comes out, there are 4 names that always get brought up for comparison. Final Fight, Turtles in Time, River City Ransom, and Streets of Rage. Only boomers care about Double Dragon. Streets of Rage 1 was already a decent game, but trust me, it's Streets of Rage 2 that people think of. Known as Bare Knuckle 2 in Japan, this game definitely suffers from some technicalities that most beat-ups had in common. It also features mechanics that add a lot of depth if you take your time to learn them, which make it age better than you might think. Why didn't they keep the Bare Knuckle name in the West? Well, you have 4 playable characters, each with different stats for speed, jump, and strength. Max, Exo, Blaze, and Skate. Max is the only one not wearing gloves. This game also often throws steel pipes, knives, and swords for you to use as weapons, which means even as Max your knuckles are not bare all the time. That bare knuckle title would have been misleading and gamers feeling lied to would return the cartridges and trash retailers in a fit of rage. Sega of America's marketing department knew this and decided that Streets of Rage was more fitting. A year after the end of the first Streets of Rage, the villain Mr. X is back and kidnapped Adam, the 3rd playable character from that game. Exo and Blaze team up with Max, who is an ex-wrestler, and Skate, who is Adam's little brother. That's the story. Just 3 adults taking down a large murderous crime syndicate, bringing a little kid along with them. Like in any beat 'em up, your goal in each level is to slowly reach the right side of the screen. But the damn screen keeps moving farther to the right and making that objective harder than it should be. All kinds of bad guys show up to attack aggressively and get punched by you, adding to your score. The attack patterns start off really easy to read and deal with, and become more dangerous the closer you get to the final stage. Like any beat 'em up, the big bad has access to mass production of identical clones sharing the same names to fight the good guys. You can use the names and colors to help distinguish the attack patterns and learn what the best way of getting rid of each enemy is. In addition to the good old 3-hit button mash combo, you have a couple ways of saving yourself from being trapped by a mob of enemies. You can throw enemies on top of a group or use a special attack that knocks down everyone close by, at the cost of a little bit of your health. A feature that was inspired by Final Fight without a doubt. You can also do flying kicks to knock enemies back or press down and attack in the air to stun enemies for a follow-up attack. Every character can also do a no-cost special technique if you press left punch or right punch. This is best used as a combo finisher or anytime you fight a boss that likes to block interrupt combos a lot. Unfortunately, while bosses can block, the main characters can't. Unlike Dane from The Quiet Man, they don't willingly refuse to block, they just don't know how to. They all wish they were as badass as he is. Making progress in this game involves a lot of watching and learning, often dying in the process of learning. That's the essence of arcade games after all. But this is far from a brainless button masher. You have a wide moveset serving as a solution for different situations and enemies. The health draining special if you're totally surrounded, throwing enemies at others or flying kicks to give you more breathing room or interrupt charge attacks, weaving your combos into finishers for extra damage. There's even a trick to keep enemies stun locked indefinitely while you punch them again and again. Just keep pressing punch without continuing a 3-hit combo over and over. They will not have time to react. Is this cheap? Yes it is, but so is the game sometimes, so just fight cheapness with cheapness. This doesn't work against most bosses though, and makes you vulnerable to attacks from behind. Most of your extra lives will come from the stage completion bonus score and picking up gold and money hidden in anything you can destroy in the stages to add more points. Destroying those boxes and whatnot will also reveal apples and roasts to restore your health. The recovery items don't disappear, so a very good strategy is to just leave them there until you lose enough health. Apples restore a small amount and meat restores a lot more. Use them wisely. The cheapness in Streets of Rage 2 comes in form of some design decisions and technical problems. Again, they're mostly problems you find in most if not all beat'em ups of the 16-bit generation. Enemies often end up moving out of the screen where you can't follow them. This makes you very vulnerable to attacks you can't do much about if you stand too close to the edge, and also forces you to wait for them to walk back to where you can see them before you can hit them again. It's very annoying, and since combo finishes knock them back, it's practically unavoidable. Some bosses have really cheap attack patterns and can break your combos in an instant with no time for you to react and avoid losing a large chunk of your health. As far as I've researched, beating the bosses without losing lives is a matter of finding what cheese strategy works against them. Like this one where basically all you can do is wait to do a flying attack at the right time. Again and again and again. And this one where the solution seems to be spamming Axel's ground upper. There are a few sections where enemies show up immediately hitting you, and unless you memorize where they appear, that's another chunk of health you're losing for not being clairvoyant. Some of those cheap design decisions are a legacy from this game's arcade roots. So while annoying, they make sense. Arcade cabinets are supposed to be your quarters. Before I leave a comment, yes, I know, Streets of Rage games by arcade style were not actual arcade cabinet games. They were developed specifically for the Mega Drive Genesis hardware. But that doesn't change anything. The emulation tools available definitely soften the blow from this game's life training problems or the trial and error arcade design, making it fairly accessible even if you're not big into classic beat 'em ups. It would be a sin to review this game without mentioning the fantastic soundtrack done by Yuzo Koshiro, who was heavily involved in the creation of this game. It features some of the best music you can find in the Sega Genesis library. There is a lot of early 90s house influence, and the audio quality surpasses most Mega Drive titles. It's so good that you could have a DJ sneaking tracks from the game and no one would notice it's video game music. Unless the people dancing were Streets of Rage fans, of course. Arcade games are very short in length if you know what you're doing, way shorter than most short motor games. I often see people trying them for the first time and complain they're badly designed because they expect too much from you to be completed or make too much use of deadly traps in their level design. If you can spare the time to beat a 4 or 5 hour long indie game, you surely can spare to spend at least an hour less learning from your failures in a game like Streets of Rage 2. This isn't a flaw, and if they were easier to beat, all the technique and mechanical depth would be rendered pointless fluff, and everyone would be complaining they were too short. Arcade games aren't for everyone, especially beat 'em ups. But if you want to give them a shot or maybe a second chance, Streets of Rage 2 would definitely be one of the top choices. I highly recommend getting a second player. There is friendly fire, but trust me, it still makes the game easier to beat, especially if you both try your best to master all the techniques I mentioned earlier. This review is my April entry to the Retro Hangover Podcast Review Crew, so like all the best entries, it needs to include a rating. Streets of Rage 2 from Sega! gets a 9 out of 10. I have some frustrations that made me consider giving it an 8, but when you look at the game from the beginning to finish, it doesn't overstay its welcome enough to burn you out on its boss design or screen crunching issues. With 8 stages you can complete under 2 hours, it has a perfect length for a pick up and play beat 'em up session with a combat that goes much deeper when you aim for difficulty higher than easy, but not so complex that learning all the necessary techniques gets stressful. Matching all of that with one of the best soundtracks of its generation. If you own a Genesis, you are probably screwed because nobody plays couch co-op these days. If you own this on modern consoles, you can play the 2-player mode online. I would still recommend the Genesis Online version as the best of the newer re-releases thanks to its emulation accuracy. But you should probably look for alternatives if the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack doesn't appeal to you in any other way. This game is everywhere, it's not hard to figure it out. Thanks for watching and take care.